Hi, I'm Lana, and this is Sherri, and this is Real Estate Tips with SNL.
All right. So
What is this? What are we doing with this?
Well, clearly we got the memo.
Oh.
But the best part is that we matched the sofa.
Oh, yeah.
So
We're
I thought we
matchy.
needed a little contrast.
Okay.
So
I have a feeling this is going to come up throughout the podcast today.
yeah. So, sometimes things are very glamorous and other times not so much.
Not so glamorous.
So I did get contacted by somebody recently
Okay.
who said,
Okay.
you might not want my listing.
You don't want it? Oh.
I'm like, why?
Okay.
What's wrong?
Yeah.
Well, it needs work.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I get those
All
calls
right.
all the time.
All right. Because I'm the queen of new construction.
Oh, here we go again. Yeah, we're bringing that up again. All right. That's never going away.
I think the other concern was that, maybe they weren't quite ready to put it on the market.
Right.
So, hey, it needs a lot of work. It might be months before we're ready. We're going to sell it next year, something like that. These sort of things, So when you get that call, you might not want my listing. How do you respond to that?
Oh, boy. So I say, well, let me come see it, right? Because I do want to come see it because I think sometimes people feel, I don't want anyone to come look at my house because I haven't changed this or done this. And really the house is spectacular. It's a great house. So I get I get a lot of people saying to come in that, don't worry about my mess and don't worry about this. But I don't think I've had a call recently that someone has said that. So
I just got this.
Okay.
I did just get that. But I think the other part is when someone does call me, not necessarily like that, but if somebody wants you to come and do a market analysis, I will tell them, don't worry about, cleaning everything because we do live one way and we sell our homes a different way.
Sure.
And that's natural. And I feel like, as professionals, we know how to look past some clutter and just sort of take in the room and that sort of thing.
Because again, this is preliminary.
Right.
All we're doing is a preliminary look so we can see around. So when I go through a house, I like to go like room by room and I hear about some upgrades and whatnot. But I also try to give some suggestions.
Yes.
I know when I prep my clients for, let's say, photography, I like to have as much removed as possible so that the consumer can see the room, right?
Yes.
But when I'm going for the preliminary look of a property, I'm just going to kind of go through each room and each thing that they bring up because remember, they're the ones that love their house so much.
Right.
What's bothering them? Let's see if that's really a make or break of doing something or not doing something.
It's funny that you say that because I always ask, what made you buy this house?
Oh, yeah.
What attracted you, and because I think that obviously those are the things we want to focus on, because if somebody said, well, I bought this house because I loved the fieldstone fireplace or, that the location or whatever. But all right. So back to you might not want my listing. When you hear something like that, like in my head, I'm thinking, oh Lord, oh gosh, what do we got here? And sometimes, what do they say? A diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
It might be something as simple as that.
Right.
Everyone identifies, what they.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just thinking, I might have something in my house that, is this big, but I see it every day. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger in my head. And it may not be that big of a problem.
Right.
But I think we need to look at the house.
Right. And I think we can help ease their pressure. I can't tell you how many times I've gone in. So I just think of a recent one. This wasn't even in the house. I walked in, I'm like, this is wonderful, right? There was nothing that I saw, and I'm thinking, okay, what was the problem? Well, it happened to be outside. And so, I like you said, people think of the things, oh, I'm so embarrassed that I don't want anyone looking at that. But when you really look at it, like, no, that's not a problem. Or what do you say when it's a big problem? Like, I've walked into some rooms and I'll say, okay, what are we going to do about that? Like, there's this big stain,
the big stain
on the ceiling and you can't miss it.
Is that an old leak or is that current?
Right. So, I mean, there's going to be some obvious things we're going to talk about, right? But I think sometimes, I know for me, just like you, there's some things, oh, I don't even want Sherri looking at my house right now and looking at that. But you probably, you know, I guess it's all different eyes, but for us to go through, that makes so much sense because we're also going to know like how the photos are going to be taken, what our photographer is going to be looking at, and then what a consumer, because we talk to them morning, noon, and night, right? They're going to walk in and what's their response going to be? So we can kind of like talk about all those things and get it set up.
Well, so maybe the property does need work.
Right.
Okay. And and the question is whether or not to make those improvements before listing or selling the house as is. I think the most obvious answer, is two parts. You know, number one, you never want to over improve the property because you want to get a return on your investment. You know, so what is the medium price point for the town that this property is in? Does it make sense to spend some money to get this home ready to list? Right. You know, or are you doing just enough to get it maybe to pass certain financing so that you can list it? You know, I mean, there's, I guess those options, there's more. We could get into a very long topic on that. But then, you know, maybe your client doesn't have the funds to make those repairs. So I think if the option is that it makes the most sense to fix the home, and get it up to, you know, a level that's going to be very buyer friendly.
Because our goal is to get the highest and best price for our client, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if we feel or collaborate with our client that this can work, then there could be some tools they can use. Right. Especially if there's a financial issue or maybe a resource issue, we can't find a contractor or all of that. Yeah.
Well, and we're pretty fortunate at Coldwell Banker because we have a program called Real Vitalize that allows us to help our clients make repairs to their house without them putting any out of pocket.
They don't have to pay anything, right?
Yeah, they're not. It comes out of the proceeds. You know, obviously there's more details, and I would say that would be something to ask us about. We'd be happy to help you. But that's one great thing that we have in our back pocket that we can help people with. But the other thing is because we do have the contacts. So if you do need a painter. That's
probably the number one. Yeah. A painter and a house cleaner. Because sometimes it's just a matter, and when I say house cleaner, I mean somebody that can go in there and take everything, the stuff that you want out because they don't have the means to like get it out of the house and then clean. A painter and a cleaner is probably my two top things that I have to find for people.
And they're probably not the most expensive things to do.
Right.
So when you start looking at that, that, maybe paint to me is the best return on your investment. It not only is it, especially if you're neutralizing some bright walls or something like that, but
you're scuffed up walls.
But there's also going to be this aroma, of, it's going to smell fresh. It's going to smell,
Are you saying you're going into smelly homes?
So I may have gone into a few smelly homes before. Yep.
Hey.
But you might not want that listing. Kidding.
No, I do understand. Like the paint does cover up some of the smell. And it could be a smoker smell. It could be just a musty smell. It could be a lot of different things. A cooking smell, whatever. That is helpful. Yeah. I think it's like the least expensive. And then sometimes it's just a matter of like a couple little contractor fixes, like a handyman.
Yeah.
So I know for me, my field of, my service providers, the handyman, the cleaner, and the painter must be on my speed dial.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
because and they're great references. And what I also find is I try to hear how they did for feedback from all my clients so that I can say, oh, they did a great job at this, or they do really good at this.
Right.
And so now we can keep referring, and it keeps going around and around. But I think it's been really helpful if you preliminary get ready, call us. We can go through it step by step. Don't get your house all clean and ready for us. We can just walk through and, look past
Right.
it.
I'll tell you this, just this past year, I was fortunate enough to have these sellers that they were selling their father's home. He'd passed away, and they just didn't have the time. They weren't local,
Sure.
they didn't have the resources, but they knew that the location, really required a home to be, pristine in order to sell. And it was, Dad had lived, a very simple life. He didn't have all these updates over the years in his home. So we went in and we did. We tore up flooring. We painted, and it was, we painted cabinets, in the kitchen. It had the old white laminate countertops. So we painted the cabinets like this, sort of a very dark blue.
Oh.
And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I even had little white, knobs for the hardware and stuff. So we were still using, what Dad had in the home, but just giving it this fresh look. And then, of course, painting all of the walls, did some power washing on the outside. It was not a huge investment, but it made 100% improvement on the way you viewed the home. That was not new kitchen. It was not a new bathroom, and the flooring was carpeting, so it wasn't super expensive.
Fresh and clean.
But and it smelled great.
I smell it.
Yeah. I loved doing it too. I was thrilled that they trusted me with that, and we were able to sell with multiple offers, over asking.
Yeah. Well, we want to maximize. Again, it's someone's asset, right? So we don't want to just we'll just put it on the market and just as it is.
Right.
Sometimes just a small investment and like this revitalize it that might really make the difference for somebody.
Right.
But let's say, majority, we sell it, as is. I think knowledge is power.
Yes.
I feel like the more we can disclose, so I try to educate the sellers to disclose. Tell me everything you can about the property. And another helpful tool is seller's disclosure statement.
Yes.
We can give it, I think it's 8 pages long. I always say, this is your homework.
I do the same thing. I call it homework.
Here's your homework.
I call it the, I just told you everything about my house so you can't sue me form. So, well, I hate to say it in those negative terms, but we do live in, an area where, not area, but a world where people just want to sue over everything. Yeah. And it's been such a fast-paced market where people are just rushing to put their homes on the market. A lot of buyers have been waiving home inspection. And I'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you know that there is, some issue with the home, you disclose it.
Right.
You put it out there up front, because remember that little itty bitty hole that you think is huge? Somebody might look at that and say, I can deal with this. This is not bad. But if you knew about it and didn't tell them,
right, and
then they find out that you did know about it, you don't want to be in that situation.
Right. And so, I think that just, I always tell my sellers too, it's the good and the bad, right? Because we love to talk about how, the new stuff we did, the upgrades we did. We love to talk about it, but there's nothing wrong. And I don't even like to use the word bad. It's not bad. No. Let's use the things that you think might be, they're quirky, right? But you got used to living with it. Like you got used to living with a drippy thing or seepage or the door not shutting or a cracked window. You get used to that stuff, right? But it doesn't mean that there's something wrong or bad with the house. So I like when we say a couple of the window seals are broken now.
Right.
So when when the shades are shut and then they go to their home inspection and then they see, oh my gosh, we have 4 windows we have to, fix the
Right.
seals. I don't want that to be a bad, everyone's uplifted. The sellers are excited about their house. I want the buyer who's going forward to be
Right.
excited and not
Right.
be like, oh, we didn't see that. We didn't see this. We didn't see that. So I think disclosing as much, not making up something like I think, but if we have something to share, knowledge is power. Transactions go very smooth.
Absolutely.
Like, oh yeah, that was in the seller's, okay, that, or if it's in the seller's disclosure, can I get a little bit more information about that? And then all those questions, unknowns, they become just knowledge.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I think that's helpful.
Yeah, no, I agree. Knowledge is a very powerful thing, and I do feel as though sometimes disclosures aren't necessarily like, here's what's wrong with the house, but maybe here that big stain that you see on the ceiling. Well, that's because, my kids were playing in the bathtub and it overflowed and it went through and created a stain. Just explain what it is, and then you're good. It doesn't mean there's something wrong there.
Right.
And maybe the buyer would say, hey, that's not a big deal. I have kids and they're going to do the same thing with their little squeaky toys in the tub. So
Oh, and here's the other thing. When do we do this disclosure? And I feel like before the listing goes live, I like to have the information.
Yes.
Because even if they don't fill out the whole seller's disclosure, because it's challenging. There's a lot of check boxes and they're not sure. And the questions are kind of like, do I have plumbing? Yeah, I have plumbing.
It's also not mandatory.
It's not mandatory, right?
So, yeah.
And it's not. And if they don't feel comfortable, no. But I like also sometimes just to have a checklist attached to the listing. To say the roof, maybe it was replaced in such and such a year, or less than 10 years. Something to give if we have some information.
Right.
Because yes, buyers do their due diligence. Yes, we understand that. But it would eliminate down the road. I feel it eliminates down the road all the way through the final walkthrough. Because you get to the final walkthrough and they're like, well, we never saw that. There was a painting or something, or there was a bureau in the way. But let's just put everything out there so there's no problems going on.
Right, because if you don't want to make it look like there's a bunch of red flags, because now trust is broken, people aren't comfortable, they're going to be constantly questioning the motive of the other party, and it just creates this hostile transaction that doesn't need to be there. But that being said, not every seller is in a position to disclose.
Right.
Sometimes they've inherited a property and it is an estate sale. They've never lived in the home. They don't know anything about the property. And at that point, we're going to say, hey, it's I don't want to say buyer beware, but this is where
due diligence.
Do your due diligence, have a home inspection.
Right.
Let's bring them back, folks. We kind of got away from doing home inspections. I think a lot of people had a little bit of remorse after buying a home where they discovered, issues because they waived the home inspection. Yeah. So let's bring those back, and let's focus on, just getting to know the property as much as possible. Know what you're buying, and it's okay if it needs some work.
Right.
Because guess what? I do want that listing.
Also, knowledge is power, right?
Yes. Yep.
Let's avoid any obstacles along the way. Let's disclose as much as we can.
Yeah.
And we will be happy to do all that for you.
Right.
I think that's
now, if you're not sure, if you think that we wouldn't want your listing and you want to know what you can do to make it more appealing, more attractive, and by the way, we do want your listing, comment. Reach out to us. Let us know. You've got some questions. We do want to hear from you.
Yes.
We'd like to include, questions in our next podcast. We're having a lot of fun with this, and we want you to be along for the ride with us. So thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
And if you want to reach us, you can find Lana or myself, Sherri, over at Coldwell Banker in Leominster.
You can. So make sure you make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.